3 a.m. on a Saturday, January 2021. I'm frantically flipping through 20 tabs of Reddit on my computer as I call my mom, trying to get some reassurance that everything's going to be okay. Over the past couple of weeks, my bank account has skyrocketed from a couple $1,000s to over $100,000, and right now I can only think about one thing: GameStop. Flashback 1 month earlier. It's the end of a brutal semester of math classes, and I turn to my favorite source of stress relief, an admittedly crude online investing forum on Reddit called Wall Street Bets, where memes about the Federal Reserve's infinite money machine are side by side next to posts of million-dollar gains and losses from crazy bets on options contracts. It was all underpinned by one philosophy: YOLO! You only live once, so go big or don't even bother. And I wanted to go big, 20x my money, and do something great. And then one day, I saw how I was going to do it. All the hedge funds thought GameStop was going to zero, so much so that they sold more shares short than existed. Now, you see, typically in the stock market, you buy first and then sell. But Wall Street did it backwards. They sold shares first without actually owning them, promising to buy them back in the future, hopefully at a lower price. Backwards, I know, but it's Wall Street. Are you really that surprised? But us on Wall Street Bets saw things a little differently. Ryan Cohen, the former CEO of Chewy, could pivot GameStop to a more profitable e-commerce future. And with so much short interest, if the stock went up, we could trigger what's called a short squeeze and essentially hold the hedge funds hostage to pay exorbitant prices for shares that they had sold without owning. Determined to wipe the smug grins off the experts' faces, this became more than an investment thesis. It became a mission to stick it to the man. So, with a couple $1,000s I had made from an internship the previous summer, I'd buy 325 shares at $16. My dad buys 1,000. We were in this together, and he said that he would sell when I sold. So YOLO, baby, let's ride this thing to the moon. And it didn't take long for us to take off. Soon enough, Ryan Cohen, as we predicted, joins the board of directors. The stock begins to go up. A Redditor had already turned $50,000 into several million from a crazy bet on an options contract. A buzz began to appear online. His name was Roaring Kitty, and he hadn't sold. He was still holding, or as we on Wall Street Bets like to call it, hodling. H-O-D-L. Not just a misspelling of hold, but an acronym. Hold on for dear life. And if Roaring Kitty was hodling, I was hodling. When he would sell, I sold. And we weren't selling till those hedge funds went bust. Newspapers and TV stations across the country got word of our glorious mission, and the stock went up and up and up, from 15 to 30 to 60 to 120 to 240 to 486. My hands turned into diamonds under the pressure of holding on for dear life. My shares were now worth over $100,000. It's a lot more zeros than I'm used to. My dad's shares over $400,000. And with more shares sold short than existed, there was an infinite demand, and I was the supply. Times Square was lit up with advertisements flashing to buy and hodl GME. It was a glorious sight. Billboards across the country advertised, "Join the Reddit army, apes together strong." Elon Musk and literally every other celebrity was tweeting about it. Game stonk, baby. Insert rocket emoji here. It felt like the peak. The peak. Well, if it was the peak, then maybe I should sell. Sure, the hedge funds hadn't gone completely bust and Roaring Kitty hadn't sold yet, but if I got out now, I could achieve exactly what I set out to do. So I called up my dad, and what he said next completely reversed my perspective. A few days ago, without telling me, he sold in the mid-100s. I suddenly did not want to sell anymore. The whole point of this investment was driven by a desire to be listened to feel heard, to have a thesis that goes against the grain and execute it. And where had that plan gone? My spite for the hedge funds reached an all-time high, and I wanted to see them crumble, so I held. But the next day, the unthinkable happened. If you went on Robinhood, the app of choice for most Redditors to do their buying and selling of GameStop, you couldn't buy GameStop anymore. Only sell. They had turned off the buy button. As such, the stock drops down into the mid-100s. I hold on. The next day, it shoots back up to 325, God knows why. And at this point, I am so bewildered that I'm saying crazy things like, well, maybe if I just hold on for the next year, I can get the long-term capital gains. I was that deluded. It was embarrassing. But thankfully, one of my friends noticed that there was something clearly wrong with me, found out I was holding, and convinced me to sell. Too bad it was Friday at 6 p.m., a little too far after hours for me to do any trading at all. The market wouldn't open back up until Monday at 9:30. So a weekend of hell awaited me. Which brings us to where we started. Have you ever had the feeling of only being able to think about one thing? A thought like a magnet that draws you in and forces you to think of it no matter how unpleasant it is? All I could think about was GameStop. What if it went back down to the mid-100s or lower? What if I lost my one chance to do something great? I had to live life on autopilot, doing my math homework, eating meals, all with the constant drone of GameStop, GameStop, GameStop in the back of my head. Finally, Monday morning comes. I can remember it now. I have an 8:30 class, which I ditch halfway through to prepare to sell. I pull up my portfolio and I move my mouse over to the sell button. I'm counting down the seconds until opening bell hits. 3, 2, 1. It's 9:30. GME is only down 3%. We're at $314. I immediately hit the sell button and wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Order confirmed. It had gone through. Yes, yes, yes. I had done it. I had finally done it. I had won. I had won. I had 20x my money and done exactly what I wanted to do. And the relief, oh sweet God, the relief. The weight of the world was off my shoulders. And if you could put that feeling in a pill, the world just might end. Now, in celebration, you guessed it, I went on Wall Street Bets. And I came across a post that the author behind the book behind the Facebook movie was writing a book about the GameStop saga. So I emailed him cold, and after a few conversations, he writes 53 pages about me in his book, The Antisocial Network. Now, this was adapted into the movie Dumb Money, which my character was adapted into a lesbian couple, which, if you're looking at me, not exactly a one-to-one recreation, but hey, it's Hollywood, baby. I'll take it. But when I think about the huge success I came across, I think about the cost at which it came. I became single-minded on achieving a goal with disregard for my family and friends. I became irrational, even paranoid over the desire to feel heard. Wasn't I supposed to feel happy that I had made so much money? I mean, sure, it was sad that my dad and I didn't sell together, but why couldn't I have kept a cool head and made the right decision? And if I had gotten this upset over making so much money, what would it have been like on the other side? I mean, after all, somebody had to buy my shares. What if it was another amateur investor who saw those billboards on Times Square? In the days after I sold, GME dropped down to 40. It was a roller coaster after that, eventually even getting into the 300s, but I was out for good. My dad and I have a great relationship, by the way. It was easy to make up, and I only tease him a little bit about it these days. Hi, Dad. The moral of the story is this: when chasing greatness, never lose sight of what is truly valuable. When your relationships with your friends and family become strained due to a single-minded obsession that's taking up all your energy, sometimes the best thing to do is sell. Get out and focus on investing in the relationships where your gains are far more valuable than money. Because YOLO! You only live once. Thank you.